How can one playful night out lead to a public lawful ending? What begins as a game to get back at my ex turns into a series of silent moves I tried to ignore, until the day I'm handed divorce papers in front of everyone. Can I still call him the villain when his revenge is so calm, official, and public? The bass was pounding so hard I could feel it in my chest, and for the first time in months, I felt alive. Really alive. Not like the walking zombie I'd become at home with Caleb, where every conversation felt like pulling teeth, and every smile seemed forced. "Another round!" Rafa shouted over the music, his arm sliding around my waist as he guided me toward the VIP section. The club lights caught his dark hair, and I couldn't help but notice how different he was from my husband. Where Caleb was methodical and quiet, Rafa was spontaneous and electric. I pulled out my phone and hit record, capturing the moment as Rafa spun me around, both of us laughing like teenagers. The video was perfect. Me in my new red dress, looking carefree and beautiful, with this gorgeous guy who actually seemed happy to be around me. "Post it," urged my coworker Nate, who'd been encouraging this whole night out from the beginning. "Show everyone you're living your best life, Otily." I didn't hesitate. Within seconds, the video was live on my social media with the caption, "Sometimes you need a night to remember who you are." Living my best life. En sao. No regrets. The likes started pouring in immediately. My ex-boyfriend from college commented with fire emojis. Several male colleagues from work left flirty responses. Even some of my married girlfriends were commenting about how jealous they were of my freedom. But there was one person I was really hoping would see it. One person whose reaction I was dying to witness. When I finally stumbled through our apartment door at 2:47 a.m., Caleb was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a cup of coffee that had clearly gone cold hours ago. He looked up at me with those pale blue eyes that used to make my heart race, but now just seemed to catalogue everything they saw. "Have fun?" he asked, his voice completely neutral. "It was amazing," I said, kicking off my heels and letting them clatter dramatically on the hardwood floor. "Rafa knows how to show a girl a good time. We danced until they practically kicked us out." Caleb's fingers paused over his keyboard for just a moment. "Rafa?" "He's a club promoter, really successful, really charming. The kind of guy who knows how to make a woman feel special." I was laying it on thick, but Caleb's face remained expressionless. "I see you posted about it," he said quietly. "Oh, you saw that?" I tried to sound casual, but my heart was racing. This was exactly what I'd wanted. Some kind of reaction, some sign that he still cared enough to feel something. "Hard to miss. Nate shared it to his story. So did about 6 other people from your office." I waited for more. Anger, jealousy, hurt, anything. But Caleb just closed his laptop and stood up. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight," he said. "You smell like another man's cologne." That stung more than I expected. "Caleb, it's not what you think. We're just friends. I was having fun for once instead of sitting around this tomb of an apartment watching you work on spreadsheets all night." "Friends," he repeated like he was testing the word. "Okay, Otily. Friends." He walked past me toward the hallway, then paused. "By the way, I'm keeping track of things now. Just so we're both clear on what's happening." "Keeping track of what things?" But he was already gone, leaving me standing alone in our kitchen, suddenly feeling less victorious than I had an hour ago. The next morning, I found a small notebook on the counter with yesterday's date written at the top, followed by, "Oh, out until 2:47 a.m. Posted video with male friend Rafa at 11:23 p.m. 47 likes, 12 comments as of midnight." I stared at the neat handwriting, feeling a chill run down my spine. What the hell was he doing? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. When I confronted him about it over breakfast, Caleb just shrugged. "You said you want to live your life openly. I'm just documenting what that looks like." That's weird, Caleb. That's really weird. Is it? You're posting everything online anyway. I'm just keeping a record for our household. Our household? What does that even mean? But he was already grabbing his briefcase and heading for the door. Have a good day at work, Otily. I'm sure it'll be interesting to see what people are saying about last night. He was right about that. The moment I walked into the office, I was surrounded by coworkers wanting details about my night out. The attention felt incredible after months of feeling invisible at home. Girl, you looked amazing in that video, said Jennifer from accounting. Who was that guy? He's gorgeous. Just a friend, I said, using the same phrase I'd used with Caleb. But yeah, he knows how to have a good time. Your husband must have been thrilled, said Tom from marketing, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Caleb doesn't own me, I replied, louder than necessary. I'm allowed to have friends and go out and enjoy myself. Several people nodded in agreement, but I caught a few exchanging glances that made me uncomfortable. Still, the overall response was positive, and I found myself basking in the attention all morning. That afternoon, my sister Lydia called. Otily, what the hell are you doing? Hello to you too, Lydia. I saw your video. Mom saw your video. Caleb's mother called Mom this morning asking if everything was okay with your marriage. I felt my stomach drop. Mrs. Gray called Mom. She's worried about her son. Apparently he's been acting strange lately, and then she sees her daughter-in-law grinding on some guy at a nightclub on social media. I wasn't grinding on anyone. We were dancing. People dance, Lydia. It's a normal human activity. Married people dance with their husbands, Otily. Well, maybe if my husband ever wanted to go anywhere or do anything fun, I would dance with him. But he's perfectly content to sit at home with his precious spreadsheets every night. There was a long pause. Are you having an affair? No. God, why does everyone jump to that conclusion? Rafa and I are friends. That's it. I'm not allowed to have male friends now. You're allowed to do whatever you want, Lydia said carefully, but actions have consequences. And posting videos of yourself out with other men while your husband sits at home isn't exactly sending a message about your commitment to your marriage. Maybe I'm not as committed as I used to be, I snapped, immediately regretting the words. Another long pause. Otily, be very careful. Caleb's a good man, but he's not stupid, and he's not going to put up with being humiliated indefinitely. After I hung up, I sat at my desk feeling unsettled. But then Rafa texted me about meeting up again this weekend, and Nate stopped by to tell me how cool it was that I was living authentically, and the uncomfortable feeling faded. That night, I found Caleb in the guest room, writing in his little notebook again. What are you writing now? I asked. Today you told 3 different people at work that I never take you anywhere fun, he said without looking up. Tom mentioned it when he called about the Henderson account. You also told your sister that you might not be as committed to this marriage as you used to be. She called me to give me a heads up. My face flushed hot. Lydia had no right to. She's worried about both of us. She thinks we should try counseling. Do you want to try counseling? Caleb finally looked up at me. Do you want to try being married? The question hung in the air between us. I opened my mouth to answer, but realized I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. I'm going to keep documenting things, Caleb said quietly, just so we both know where we stand. Fine, I said, turning to leave. Document away. I'm not doing anything wrong. But as I walked back to our bedroom, my bedroom now apparently, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had fundamentally shifted. The game I thought I was playing suddenly felt like it had higher stakes than I'd realized. I checked my phone one more time before bed. The video from the club now had 73 likes and 19 comments. Rafa had tagged me in a story about amazing new friends. My ex-boyfriend had slid into my DMs, asking if I was single now. For a moment, I felt that same rush of validation and excitement. But then I heard Caleb's voice through the wall, talking quietly on the phone with someone, and the words I could make out chilled me. Document everything, and just in case, and I need to protect myself. Protect himself from what? From me? I stared at the ceiling for hours that night, wondering what exactly I'd set in motion. The next few weeks fell into a strange new rhythm. I'd go out with Rafa and our growing group of friends, post about it online, and come home to find Caleb calmly documenting everything in his notebooks. He'd moved completely into the guest room and had started keeping his own coffee mug, his own towels, even his own section of the refrigerator. It was like living with a polite roommate who happened to be my husband. "You're overthinking this," Nate assured me over lunch. "He's trying to make you feel guilty for having a social life. It's a classic control tactic." I wanted to believe him. It was easier than examining the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach every time I saw Caleb writing in those damn notebooks. The attention at work had become addictive. Every Monday, people would gather around my desk to hear about my weekend adventures. I'd become the office entertainment, the married woman living like she was single again. Some people seemed genuinely happy for me. Others were clearly just enjoying the drama. But all of them were paying attention to me in a way that felt incredible after months of feeling invisible. So when Rafa invited me to a rooftop party that Saturday night, I didn't hesitate to say yes. And when he suggested we take some photos together for his club's social media, I was all for it. The pictures were stunning. Me in a black cocktail dress, laughing at something Rafa was whispering in my ear, his arm around my waist as we looked out over the city skyline. One where he was spinning me around, my dress flowing dramatically in the evening breeze. "These are going to get so many likes," I told him as I posted them to my Instagram story and my Facebook page. "You're going to have women lining up around the block to get into your events." "What about your husband?" Rafa asked. It was the first time he'd brought up Caleb directly. "What about him? Doesn't he mind you posting pictures like this? With me?" I felt a flash of irritation. "Caleb doesn't control what I post. We're friends, Rafa. There's nothing wrong with friends taking pictures together." He nodded, but I caught him glancing at my wedding ring, which I'd started leaving at home more often lately. The photos exploded online. Within an hour, they had more engagement than anything I'd ever posted. Comments were pouring in from people I hadn't talked to in years. My college girlfriends were asking if I was living my best life. Male acquaintances were leaving flirty comments about how lucky Rafa was. But it was the private messages that really got my attention. 3 different men from my past had reached out, asking if I was available to reconnect. 2 guys from work had sent messages about grabbing drinks sometime. Even a married colleague had sent a message saying he was jealous of my freedom and would love to talk about it over dinner. The power was intoxicating. After months of feeling unwanted and ignored, suddenly, I was the woman everyone wanted to be around. The validation felt like a drug. When I got home that night, I found Caleb at the kitchen table with his laptop and several manila folders spread out in front of him. "Working late?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Something like that," he replied, not looking up. I could see my Instagram photos pulled up on his screen, along with what looked like screenshots of all the comments and messages. "Are you seriously screenshotting my social media posts?" "I'm documenting our marriage," he said calmly, "for the record." "What record? Caleb, this is insane. You're acting like I'm committing crimes by posting pictures with my friends." "Is that what you're calling him now? Your friend?" "That's what he is." Caleb finally looked up at me. "Otily, do you know what this looks like to other people? To our families? To your co-workers? It looks like I'm having fun for once in my life. It looks like you're having an affair." The words hit me like a slap. I am not having an affair. Then why are you getting messages from 7 different men asking if you're single? Why is your ex-boyfriend asking if you want to grab coffee to catch up? Why did Jennifer from your office ask me if we were separated when she ran into me at the grocery store? I felt my face flush. People are just being friendly. "Friendly?" He turned his laptop screen toward me. "Is this friendly?" On the screen was a message from Tom at work. "If you ever want to talk about what you're going through, I'm here." My marriage went through a rough patch too. Maybe we could grab dinner, and I could share what helped me. You deserve to be happy, Otily. I stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. I'd read it earlier and felt flattered by Tom's concern. But seeing it through Caleb's eyes, it looked different, more predatory. Tom's just being supportive, I said weakly. Tom's married with 3 kids, and he's asking my wife out to dinner to discuss her marriage problems. Caleb's voice was still calm, but there was something sharp underneath it now. How do you think his wife would feel about that support? I didn't have an answer for that. And this one, Caleb continued, clicking to another message. From your ex-boyfriend. You look incredible, Otily, like the woman I fell in love with in college. If you ever want to remember what it feels like to be appreciated, call me. Seeing all the messages lined up like that, I started to understand why Caleb was documenting everything. It did look bad, really bad, but instead of admitting that, I went on the offensive. So now I'm not allowed to have people compliment me. I'm not allowed to have friends who care about my happiness. You're allowed to do whatever you want, Caleb said, closing the laptop. But I'm allowed to document what my wife is doing and how it's affecting our marriage. Why? What are you planning to do with all this documentation? He looked at me for a long moment. I'm protecting myself, Otily, because I have a feeling I'm going to need to. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through all the comments and messages again. The attention still felt good, but Caleb's words kept echoing in my head. What did this look like to other people? I called Lydia the next morning. I saw your photos, she said before I could even explain why I was calling. They're just pictures, Lydia. Otily, you look like you're on a date with that man, a romantic date. We're friends. Friends don't pose like that together, not when one of them is married. I felt tears of frustration welling up. Why is everyone acting like I'm doing something terrible? I'm just trying to have some fun and feel good about myself for once. Because you're a married woman acting single, and everyone can see it except you. Lydia's voice was gentle but firm. What's going on with you and Caleb? Nothing's going on. That's the problem. He comes home, works on his computer, goes to bed. We barely talk anymore. I feel like I'm married to a robot. Have you tried talking to him about that? I shouldn't have to beg my husband to pay attention to me. And he shouldn't have to beg his wife to stop posting pictures that make her look available to other men. After I hung up, I sat in my car outside the grocery store, feeling completely alone. Everyone seemed to be against me, Caleb, Lydia, even my mother-in-law, who'd apparently been calling around expressing concerns about my behavior. But when I got to work Monday morning, the support I received there reminded me that not everyone thought I was doing something wrong. You looked amazing in those photos, Jennifer gushed. That dress was perfect on you. Rafa seems like a catch, added Sarah from HR. Is he single? Very single, I confirmed, feeling some of my confidence return. Lucky him, getting to spend so much time with you, Tom said, appearing at my desk with coffee. How are you holding up with everything? Everything? Well, it can't be easy, navigating a marriage that's, he paused delicately, going through changes. I found myself opening up to Tom about how distant Caleb had become, how he was obsessing over documenting my every move, how isolated I felt at home. Tom listened with such genuine concern and sympathy that I felt tears welling up. You deserve so much better than that, he said softly. No woman should have to feel like she's walking on eggshells in her own marriage. It felt so good to have someone validate my feelings that I didn't stop to think about whether sharing intimate details of my marriage with a male colleague was appropriate. That evening, I found another note in Caleb's notebook. O discussed private marriage details with Tom M. at work. Tom brought her coffee and spent 45 minutes at her desk. Jennifer R. reported conversation seemed very personal and emotional. Jennifer's reporting to you now? I demanded when I confronted him. Jennifer's concerned about you. She thinks you're going through something difficult and maybe making some poor choices because of it. Jennifer needs to mind her own business. So does Tom, apparently. But he's not, is he? I stared at my husband, this man I'd been married to for 4 years, and felt like I was looking at a stranger. When had he become so cold and calculating? When had our marriage turned into this weird game of surveillance and documentation? I want you to stop writing about me in those notebooks, I said. Okay, he replied. I'll switch to digital files, easier to organize anyway. Caleb, you want to live your life publicly, Otily. You post everything online for the world to see. I'm just keeping track of what my wife is doing and who she's doing it with. If there's nothing wrong with your behavior, there's nothing wrong with me documenting it. He had me there, and we both knew it. That night I posted another photo, just me this time, getting ready for bed, with the caption, "Grateful for the people in my life who see me and value me. Life is too short not to surround yourself with those who appreciate you. Blessed, if I know your worth." The likes and supportive comments poured in as usual, but for the first time, I found myself wondering what story I was really telling, and whether it was one I actually wanted to be living. By the third week of what I'd started thinking of as our Cold War, Caleb had transformed our apartment into something that resembled a business arrangement more than a marriage. He'd bought a separate set of dishes and kept them in the guest room. His toiletries had migrated to the hall bathroom. Even our streaming services had been divided. He'd created his own Netflix profile and removed access to his Spotify account from my devices. It was methodical and thorough, and it was driving me crazy. "He's trying to punish you," Nate assured me over drinks after work. "Make you feel guilty so you'll come crawling back and promise to be a good little housewife." "It's working," I admitted. "The apartment feels like a morgue. We barely speak anymore." "Good. Let him sulk. You're finally living your life instead of tiptoeing around his moods." Rafa nodded in agreement. "You're a completely different person than when I first met you. More confident, more alive. Don't let him drag you back down." Their support felt good, but it didn't change the fact that I was sleeping alone in a king-size bed while my husband lived like a stranger down the hall. I decided to try a different approach. Saturday morning, I made Caleb's favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, and set it outside the guest room door with a cup of coffee and a note. "Truce? I miss my husband." An hour later, I found the tray outside my bedroom door with a note attached. "Thank you for breakfast. It was delicious, but I'm not your husband right now. I'm just the man you're married to." The distinction hit me harder than I expected. That afternoon, I tried again. I knocked on the guest room door and waited until he opened it. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Of course." He followed me to the living room and sat on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining careful distance. "This is ridiculous, Caleb. We're adults. We should be able to work through whatever this is." "What do you think this is? You're upset that I've been going out and having fun. You feel left out or neglected or something. Is that what you think is happening here?" His calm tone was infuriating. "I don't know what's happening here. You've turned into some kind of robot who documents everything I do and treats me like a roommate he doesn't particularly like." "I treat you exactly the way you treat me, Otily." "What's that supposed to mean? When's the last time you asked me about my day? When's the last time you suggested we do something together? When's the last time you acted like you wanted to be married to me instead of just living in the same apartment?" I opened my mouth to argue, then realized I couldn't remember the answers to any of those questions. "You've been distant for months," I said instead. "Always working, never wanting to go out or do anything fun." "I've been working extra hours because I thought we might need the money if you decided you didn't want to be married anymore." "Why would you think that?" He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Because you've been acting like a single woman for the past month. Because you light up around other men in a way you haven't around me in years. Because you post about your amazing friends and your best life, but you haven't posted a single picture of us together since last Christmas." That last part stung because it was true. I'd been so focused on my new social life that I'd completely neglected documenting anything positive about my marriage. But that was because there hadn't been anything positive to document, right? Maybe if you made an effort to be part of my life instead of just observing it from the sidelines, things would be different. I made efforts for years, Otily. I planned date nights that you cancelled for work events. I suggested trips that you said we couldn't afford while you bought new outfits for nights out with friends. I tried to talk to you about what was wrong, and you told me I was being needy. I didn't remember saying that, but the way he said it made me think he probably had it documented somewhere. So what do you want from me? I asked. I want you to decide what you actually want. Do you want to be married, or do you want to be single? Because right now you're trying to be both, and it's not fair to either of us. I want to be married to someone who acts like he wants to be married to me. And I want to be married to someone who acts like she's married. We stared at each other across the couch, and I realized we'd reached some kind of impasse. So what now? I asked. Now you decide what you want your life to look like, and I'll decide what I'm willing to accept. Are you threatening me? I'm setting boundaries, something I should have done a long time ago. That night, I called Lydia in tears. He's being so cold, Lydia. It's like he's already given up on us. Have you given up on you? What do you mean? I mean, when you post pictures with Rafa, are you thinking about how to make your marriage better? Or are you thinking about how good it feels to have someone else's attention? I didn't answer because I couldn't lie to my sister, and the truth was too uncomfortable to say out loud. Otily, I love you, but you're playing with fire. And Caleb's not the kind of man who's going to keep getting burned indefinitely. So, I'm supposed to just accept a loveless marriage, give up any chance at happiness? You're supposed to decide whether you want to fix your marriage or end it, but this middle ground you're living in is destroying both of you. After I hung up, I sat on my bed looking at my phone. Rafa had texted about a party tomorrow night. 3 different men had liked my latest selfie within minutes of me posting it. My Instagram story views were at an all-time high, but down the hall, my husband was sleeping alone in a guest room, keeping meticulous records of how our marriage was falling apart. For the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if the attention I was getting was worth what it was costing me. But then my phone buzzed with another message, this one from a guy I'd met at last weekend's party, asking if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, and the moment of doubt passed. I was finally feeling desirable and confident again. Why should I give that up to go back to being invisible? The next morning, I found a note from Caleb on the kitchen counter. Staying at my brother's place for a few days. Need some space to think. Take care of yourself. The apartment felt huge and empty without him. I tried to enjoy the freedom. I could play my music as loud as I wanted, watch whatever I wanted on TV, eat ice cream for dinner if I felt like it. But mostly I felt lonely in a way I hadn't expected. I threw myself into social plans to avoid thinking about it. Monday night drinks with co-workers, Tuesday dinner with Rafa and his friends, Wednesday night at a new club downtown. I posted constantly, documenting every moment of my busy, fun-filled life. The response was incredible. I'd gained 50 new followers in a week. The comments were getting more and more flirtatious. I'd started getting direct messages from men I didn't even know, asking if I was single and available. It should have felt amazing. Instead, it felt hollow. Thursday night, I came home to find Caleb's key on the kitchen counter, along with a note. Came by to get some things. Left something for you in the guest room. I rushed down the hall to find a manila envelope on the bed with my name on it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 2 columns, what I've documented over the past 6 weeks, and what I haven't seen in 6 weeks. The first column was extensive, dates, times, social media posts, messages from other men, nights out, money spent on new clothes and drinks. The second column was much shorter. Interest in spending time together, questions about my day, physical affection, discussion of our future, any indication that you want to be married. At the bottom, he'd written, I'm not trying to control you or punish you. I'm trying to understand what happened to my wife. When you figure out what you want, let me know. I stared at the paper for a long time, feeling something crack open in my chest. For the first time since this whole thing started, I forced myself to really look at what I'd been doing. Not through the lens of my own justifications or my friend's validation, but objectively. I'd been going out multiple times a week with another man. I'd been posting pictures that made me look single and available. I'd been accepting attention from other men and encouraging it. I'd been sharing intimate details of my marriage with male colleagues. I'd been spending money on new clothes and nights out while my husband worked extra hours. And I'd been telling myself it was all innocent fun. But if Caleb had been doing any of these things, how would I have felt? The thought made me physically sick. I grabbed my phone to call him, then realized I didn't know what to say. Sorry seemed inadequate. I didn't cheat seemed defensive. I want to fix this seemed hollow after weeks of behavior that suggested the opposite. Instead, I found myself scrolling through my social media, seeing my posts through new eyes. The woman in these pictures looked single. She looked available. She looked like she was advertising herself to other men, and the men responding had gotten that message loud and clear. I was about to delete some of the more questionable posts when my phone rang. It was Rafa. "Hey, beautiful, you free tonight? There's this new rooftop bar I want to check out." For the first time in weeks, I hesitated. "Actually, I think I need to stay home tonight." "Everything okay?" "Just some stuff I need to figure out." "Husband drama?" I winced at how casually he said it. "Something like that." "Well, when you get tired of dealing with that, you know where to find me. Life's too short to waste it on people who don't appreciate you." After I hung up, I realized that Rafa had never once suggested I try to work things out with my husband. Neither had Nate or any of my other new friends. They all encouraged me to keep pulling away, keep choosing them over Caleb, keep living like I was single. Maybe that should have been a red flag. I spent that night alone in the apartment, really alone, for the first time in weeks. No plans, no posts, no messages to answer. Just me and the mess I'd made of my marriage. And for the first time, I started to wonder if it was too late to fix it. When Caleb returned the following Monday, he brought boxes. Not moving boxes, file boxes, the kind lawyers use to organize evidence. He set them up in the guest room without explanation, and I could hear him in there for hours each evening, the sound of papers being shuffled and organized. Sometimes I caught glimpses of spreadsheets when he left his laptop open, color-coded calendars, printed screenshots of social media posts arranged in chronological order. It looked like he was building a case against me. "What are you doing in there?" I finally asked him directly. "Organizing," he replied. "I'm a methodical person, Otily. You know that about me." "Organizing what?" "Our marriage, the timeline, the changes, the evidence of what went wrong and when." The word evidence sent a chill down my spine. Evidence for what? For whatever comes next. That night I tried to look through the boxes while he was at work late, but they were locked. Not just closed, actually locked with small padlocks. Who locks file boxes in their own home? Someone who's protecting evidence, that's who. I started paying closer attention to Caleb's schedule. He'd always been a creature of habit, but now his routines seemed more purposeful. He left for work at exactly 7:15 a.m. He came home at 6:30 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but stayed late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Saturday mornings he was gone from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and he wouldn't say where. When I asked him about the Saturday absences, he just said, "Personal appointments." What kind of personal appointments? The kind that are personal. It was infuriating, but I couldn't exactly demand transparency when I'd spent the last 2 months posting my every move online while keeping my husband in the dark about my actual feelings and intentions. Work became my refuge again. At least there, people still treated me like I was interesting and desirable. Tom had started bringing me coffee every morning, and we'd developed a routine of talking for 20 or 30 minutes about everything: work, life, our respective marriage troubles. "He sounds controlling," Tom said when I told him about the locked file boxes. "Keeping records of your behavior, like you're some kind of criminal." "I don't think I'm a criminal, but I haven't exactly been the perfect wife lately either." "You've been trying to find yourself again. There's nothing wrong with that. Is that what you told your wife when you were going through your rough patch?" Tom's expression shifted slightly. "My situation was different." "Different how?" "Let's just say I learned that sometimes marriages end not because someone does something terrible, but because people grow apart and want different things." "Is that what happened with you and Rebecca?" "Rebecca and I worked it out, but it took both of us being willing to change." "Do you think Caleb and I can work it out?" Tom was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I think Caleb's already made up his mind. All this documentation and organization, that's not the behavior of a man trying to save his marriage. That's the behavior of a man preparing to end it." The words hit me like ice water. That weekend, I decided to make one more real effort. I planned a romantic dinner at home, Caleb's favorite meal, candles, wine, the works. I even bought a new dress, something elegant and classy, instead of the club-appropriate outfits I'd been favoring lately. When he came home from his mysterious Saturday appointment, he found me in the kitchen putting the finishing touches on dinner. "This looks nice," he said carefully. "I thought we could talk, really talk, about us." He nodded and went to change clothes. When he came back, he'd put on a button-down shirt and khakis, the kind of outfit he used to wear on our date nights years ago. For a moment, it felt like we might actually be able to find our way back to each other. "I know I've made mistakes," I started once we were seated. "I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry." "What mistakes do you think you've made?" It was such a lawyer-like question that I almost smiled. Classic Caleb. He wanted specifics, not generalities. "I've been spending too much time with Rafa and not enough time focusing on us. I've been posting things that probably looked inappropriate. I've been treating you like a roommate instead of my husband." He nodded, cutting his steak with precise movements. "What else?" "What else what?" "What other mistakes do you think you've made?" I thought about it. "I've been defensive instead of listening to your concerns. I've been prioritizing my social life over our marriage. And, I don't know, Caleb. What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me the truth about what you want. I want us to work. Do you? Or do you want to go back to the way things were before, where you could do whatever you wanted, and I'd just accept it quietly?" That stung because it was probably accurate. "I want us to be happy together." "When's the last time you were happy with me, Otily? Really happy, not just content or comfortable, but actually happy?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't remember. "When's the last time you chose me over something else you wanted to do?" Again, no answer. "When's the last time you posted a picture of us together, or talked about me positively to your friends, or acted like being married to me was something you were proud of instead of something you had to work around?" The questions kept coming, each one hitting harder than the last. "I get it," I said finally. "I've been a terrible wife. Is that what you want to hear?" "I want to hear what you actually think and feel, not what you think I want to hear." I stared at my plate, feeling exposed and defensive. I think I've been unhappy for a while, and instead of talking to you about it, I tried to fix it by getting attention from other people." "Why didn't you talk to me about it?" "Because you seemed unhappy too, and distant, and I didn't think you'd care. So you decided to act single instead. I didn't act single." "Otily, you've been going out multiple times a week with another man. You post pictures that make you look available. You flirt with men online and encourage their attention. You share intimate details of our marriage with male colleagues. You spend money on clothes and activities for your single life while I work extra hours to support us. If that's not acting single, what is?" Hearing it all laid out like that, I felt sick. I never cheated on you. Physically? No. Emotionally? That's debatable. We sat in silence for a while, the romantic dinner I'd planned turning into something that felt more like a deposition. What do you want from me, Caleb? I want you to decide what you actually want. Do you want to be married to me, specifically me, or do you just want to be married in general? Do you want to build a life together, or do you want to keep living separate lives that occasionally intersect? Do you love me, or do you just love the security and stability I provide while you explore other options? That's not fair, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you want to keep me as a safety net while you see what else is out there. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because part of me recognized the truth in what he was saying. I do love you, I said quietly. I believe you think you do. But love isn't just a feeling, Otily. It's a choice. It's actions. It's priorities. And your actions and priorities have been pretty clear lately. After dinner, he helped me clean up the dishes in silence. Then he went back to his file boxes and I went to bed alone. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Thank you for dinner. It was delicious and I appreciated the effort, but cooking one meal doesn't undo months of behavior. If you want to save this marriage, you need to make different choices consistently, not just when you're scared I might leave. He was right, and I knew it, but I also didn't know how to change patterns I'd spent months establishing. That week at work, I found myself pulling back from the attention I'd been craving. When Tom brought me coffee, I thanked him, but kept the conversation brief and professional. When male colleagues made flirty comments about my weekend plans, I redirected the conversation to work topics. It felt like giving up something I'd become addicted to. Rafa noticed the change immediately. You've been weird lately, he said when I declined his invitation to a party that Friday. Everything okay? Just trying to figure some things out. With your husband? Yeah. I thought you said he was controlling and cold. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be. You know you have options, right? You don't have to stay with someone who makes you unhappy. The way he said it made something click for me. Rafa wasn't just a friend who wanted me to be happy. He was a single man who'd been spending months with a married woman who was acting increasingly available. Of course, he was encouraging me to leave my husband. I need to take a break from going out so much, I said. Focus on my marriage for a while. His expression changed. Seriously? Yeah, I think I've been using our friendship to avoid dealing with problems at home. So you're just going to go back to being miserable with him? I'm going to try to fix my marriage. What about us? What about us? We're friends, Rafa. Are we? Because it hasn't felt like just friendship for a while now. And there it was, the thing I'd been pretending not to see for months. I'm married, I said. You've been acting single. Well, I'm not. He stared at me for a moment, then shrugged. Your loss. But don't come crying to me when you remember why you were so unhappy before. After he left, I sat in my car in the parking lot, finally understanding what Caleb had been trying to tell me. I hadn't been maintaining innocent friendships. I'd been cultivating backup options while keeping my marriage as a safety net, and everyone could see it except me. That night, I deleted half my social media posts from the past 2 months. I unfriended several men who'd been messaging me inappropriately. I changed my relationship status from "it's complicated" back to "married." When had I changed it in the first place? It felt like waking up from a dream that had turned into a nightmare. But when I tried to tell Caleb about the changes I was making, he just nodded politely and went back to his file boxes. The damage was done, and I was starting to understand that sorry might not be enough to fix it. The next few weeks felt like living in a house with a ticking time bomb. Caleb was polite but distant, going through the motions of our shared life while clearly preparing for something I couldn't quite see coming. His Saturday appointments had expanded to include some weekday evenings. When I asked where he was going, he'd say, handling some business, or meeting with someone about our situation. The vagueness was deliberate and unsettling. I'd stopped going out with Rafa entirely after our confrontation, and the absence of all that attention and validation left me feeling hollow and anxious. For months, I'd been getting constant feedback that I was desirable, interesting, worth pursuing. Without it, I felt invisible again. But this time, it was worse because I knew what I was missing. Work became awkward too. Tom seemed confused by my sudden professional boundaries, and I could tell he was hurt that I'd pulled back from our daily conversations. Other colleagues who'd been following my social media drama with interest seemed disappointed that the show was over. "You're being smart," Jennifer assured me when I explained that I was trying to focus on my marriage. "But are you sure it's not too late?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, Caleb seems pretty checked out. He barely even asks about you anymore when people mention you." "People mention me to Caleb?" Jennifer looked uncomfortable. "Sometimes. You know how it is, people talk." I didn't know how it was, actually. I'd been so focused on the positive attention I was getting that I hadn't considered what kind of conversations might be happening behind my back. "What kind of things do people say?" "Nothing mean. Just, you know, speculation about whether you guys are having problems, whether you're happy, that kind of thing." "And what does Caleb say?" "He doesn't say much of anything. He just listens and nods and changes the subject." That somehow felt worse than if he'd been defending me or getting angry. He was just letting people speculate about our marriage without any pushback. That weekend, I tried to initiate a conversation about where we stood. "I know I messed up," I told him, "but I'm trying to fix things. I've stopped going out with Rafa. I've been more careful about what I post online. I'm setting better boundaries at work." "I've noticed," he said neutrally. "So, are we okay? Can we start working on rebuilding?" "Are you making these changes because you want to be married to me, or because you're scared I'm going to leave?" The question caught me off guard. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." I thought about it honestly. "Both, I guess. I'm scared you're going to leave, but I also realize I want to be married to you. I don't know if I remember how." "What do you mean?" "I mean, for months I've been getting validation from other people. Attention, compliments, excitement. And you and we've been like polite strangers. I don't remember how to get that validation from you, or how to give it to you." It was the most honest thing I'd said in months, and I saw something shift in his expression. "I don't remember how either," he admitted. "It's been a long time since we've been good together." "So what do we do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm glad you're trying." For a moment I felt hopeful, but then he added, "I just need to finish handling some things first." "What things?" "Just some loose ends I need to tie up." The mysterious appointments continued. I started paying attention to what papers he was filing in those locked boxes, and I noticed envelopes from a law office, documents from our bank, printouts of what looked like financial records. When I asked him directly if he was talking to a lawyer, he said, "I'm exploring my options." "What options?" "All of them." The non-answers were driving me crazy, but I also knew I didn't have much standing to demand transparency, given how secretive I'd been about my own activities for months. I tried calling Lydia for advice, but she was less sympathetic than I'd expected. "You spent months acting like you wanted out of your marriage," she said bluntly. "You can't be surprised that Caleb started planning for that possibility." "But I don't want out. I want to fix things." "Do you? Or do you just want to go back to having your cake and eating it too?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you liked having Caleb as your stable home base, while you got excitement and attention from other men. Now that the other men are gone, you want Caleb to go back to being your source of security and validation. But relationships don't work that way. I know I made mistakes. You made choices, Otily. For months. Consistent choices that showed Caleb exactly where your priorities were. You can't undo that with a few weeks of better behavior." After I hung up, I sat in my car crying for 20 minutes. Everyone seemed to understand the situation better than I did, and none of them seemed to think it was fixable. That night, I found Caleb in the guest room with his laptop and a stack of papers spread across the bed. "Can I ask you something?" I said from the doorway. "Sure." "Do you think we can fix this?" He looked up at me, and for a moment his careful composure slipped. I saw exhaustion and sadness and something that might have been grief. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I want to believe we can, but I also need to be realistic about what's been happening and what it means." "What do you think it means?" "I think it means you've been unhappy with me for a long time, and instead of working on that together, you decided to look for happiness somewhere else. And I think it means I've been so focused on trying to be the perfect stable husband that I forgot to be someone you actually wanted to be with." "So we both messed up?" "Yeah, but your way of dealing with it involved other men and public humiliation and months of lying to me about what you were doing and why. My way of dealing with it involved working extra hours and withdrawing emotionally. Those aren't equivalent, Otily." He was right, and I knew it. "What can I do to fix it?" "I don't know if you can. I don't know if I can either. But I know that whatever happens, I need to protect myself this time." "Protect yourself from what?" "From being made a fool of again. From having my wife act single while I act married. From investing in someone who's looking for the exit." "I'm not looking for the exit anymore." "Aren't you? Because 3 weeks ago you were. And the only thing that's changed is that Rafa made it clear he wanted more than friendship and you got scared." The accuracy of that observation was devastating. "So what happens now?" "Now I finish getting my affairs in order, and then we'll see." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm preparing for all possible outcomes, Otily, including the one where this marriage doesn't survive what you did to it." I wanted to argue, to insist that we could work through anything, but the words felt hollow even in my own head. That weekend, I noticed Caleb packing a small suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked. "Just overnight. I'll be back tomorrow evening." "Where?" "I need to take care of something." He left without telling me where he was going or what he was taking care of. I spent the entire weekend anxious and alone, wondering if he was coming back at all. When he returned Sunday night, he seemed different, more resolved somehow, like he'd made a decision about something important. "How was your trip?" I asked. "Productive," he said. "I got done what I needed to get done." That night, I heard him on the phone in the guest room, speaking quietly to someone about finalizing everything and moving forward with the plan. I pressed my ear to the door, trying to hear more, but he was speaking too quietly. When I confronted him about it the next morning, he just said, "I told you I was handling some business." "What kind of business requires overnight trips and secret phone calls?" "The kind that involves making sure I'm protected no matter what happens next." "Caleb, you're scaring me." "Good," he said, and there was something cold in his voice I'd never heard before. "You should be scared. You should have been scared months ago when you decided to blow up our marriage for some attention from strangers." "I didn't blow up our marriage." "Didn't you?" He left for work without saying goodbye, and I spent the day with a growing sense of dread. That evening, I came home to find all of his file boxes gone from the guest room. The closet was still full of his clothes, his toiletries were still in the bathroom, but all the documentation he'd been obsessively collecting had disappeared. When I asked him about it, he said, "I moved everything to a secure location." "What secure location?" "Somewhere safe." "Safe from what?" "From being lost or damaged or interfered with." The implication was clear. He was protecting his evidence from me. That night, I barely slept. I had the growing certainty that something big was about to happen, something I wasn't prepared for. I just didn't know what. I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there: the mysterious appointments, the legal documents, the careful documentation, the overnight trips. But somehow I convinced myself that Caleb was just trying to scare me, that he'd never actually follow through with whatever he was planning. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in March when everything came crashing down. I was getting ready for work, running late as usual, when the doorbell rang. I almost ignored it, probably just a delivery for our neighbor, but it kept ringing insistently. When I opened the door, a woman in a business suit was standing there with a clipboard and an official-looking envelope. Otily Gray? Yes? You've been served. She handed me the envelope and walked away before I could ask any questions. I stood in the doorway in my bathrobe, holding the envelope with my name typed on the front in official lettering. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage was printed in bold letters across the top of the first page. Caleb was divorcing me. I sank onto the couch, reading through page after page of legal language that essentially said my husband wanted out of our marriage. But it wasn't just a simple divorce petition. It was thorough, detailed, and devastating. Attached to the petition were dozens of exhibits, screenshots of my social media posts, printed in chronological order, photos of me with Rafa at various clubs and events, screenshots of flirtatious messages from other men, a detailed timeline of my activities over the past 6 months, bank statements showing money I'd spent on clothes and nights out, even witness statements from people who'd observed my behavior. It was like seeing my life through a prosecutor's eyes, and it painted a picture of a woman who'd been systematically dismantling her marriage while her husband documented every step. One exhibit particularly caught my attention, a series of screenshots from my social media showing how I'd changed my relationship status from married to it's complicated and back to married multiple times over the past few months. I didn't even remember doing that, but there it was in black and white. Another exhibit was a statement from Jennifer at work, describing the inappropriate emotional relationship I'd developed with Tom, including details about our daily coffee meetings and personal conversations about my marriage. There was even a statement from Mrs. Kovach, our neighbor, who'd apparently witnessed me coming home late multiple nights with a male companion who was not my husband. But the most damaging exhibit was a detailed financial analysis showing how much money I'd spent on my social activities, new clothes, drinks, dinners, ride shares to and from clubs, while Caleb had been working overtime to cover our household expenses. The numbers were staggering. I'd spent over $3,000 in 6 months on what the document referred to as activities inconsistent with marriage. At the bottom of the petition, Caleb was requesting a division of assets, spousal support, and attorney's fees. But there was also something else. A request that the court find me in breach of our marriage contract due to emotional infidelity and abandonment of marital duties. I'd never heard of such a thing, but apparently it was a real legal concept that could affect how our assets were divided. I called Caleb immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Caleb, what the hell is this? You can't just divorce me without talking to me first. Call me back right now. I called 3 more times over the next hour, leaving increasingly frantic messages. Finally, he texted back. I tried talking to you for months. You made your choices clear. Now I'm making mine. I called Lydia, sobbing. He served me with divorce papers, Lydia. He's been planning this for months. He has evidence of everything, photos, messages, witness statements. It's like he's been building a case against me. Because he has been building a case against you, Lydia said quietly. Otily, what did you think was going to happen? I thought we could work it out. I thought if I stopped seeing Rafa and started trying harder. You thought you could do whatever you wanted for months, and then fix it with a few weeks of better behavior when you got scared. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of reality, and the reality is that you spent 6 months acting like a single woman while your husband documented everything. Now he's holding you accountable for it. He's humiliating me. You humiliated yourself, and you humiliated him. This is just the consequence. I hung up on her and called a lawyer. The consultation was even more devastating than the divorce papers. Mrs. Gray, I have to be honest with you, the attorney said after reviewing the petition. This is one of the most thoroughly documented cases I've ever seen. Your husband has evidence of emotional infidelity, financial irresponsibility, and what could be considered abandonment of the marriage. Even in a no-fault divorce state, this kind of documentation can significantly impact the outcome. But I never physically cheated. Physical infidelity isn't the only grounds for divorce. Emotional infidelity, especially when it's this well-documented and public, can be just as damaging to a marriage in the eyes of the court. So, what does that mean for me? It means you're probably going to get less in the settlement than you would in a typical divorce. It also means your husband's attorney fees will likely be awarded against you, since the court may find that your behavior necessitated this legal action. I felt sick. What are my options? You can contest it, but frankly, with this much evidence, I'd recommend trying to negotiate a settlement. Fighting this in court will be expensive and embarrassing, and you're unlikely to win. When I got home that afternoon, I found Caleb packing boxes in our bedroom. "Moving out already?" I asked, trying to sound sarcastic but probably just sounding hurt. "Moving my things to storage until the property division is finalized." "Caleb, we need to talk about this. We needed to talk 6 months ago. Now we need to talk through lawyers." "This is insane. You can't just end our marriage because I made some mistakes." He stopped packing and looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. "Otily, you spent half a year acting single while posting it online for the world to see. You developed emotional relationships with multiple men. You shared intimate details of our marriage with male colleagues. You spent thousands of dollars on a lifestyle that excluded me while I worked extra hours to support us. You changed your relationship status to complicated on social media. You came home smelling like other men. You treated me like a roommate while treating other men like potential boyfriends. Each point hit like a physical blow. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you told me I was controlling and paranoid. When I asked you to choose between your marriage and your social life, you chose your social life. When I asked you what you wanted, you couldn't give me a straight answer. I was confused. You were exploring your options while keeping me as a backup plan, and I documented all of it because I knew this day would come. You planned this from the beginning. I hoped I was wrong, but I prepared for the possibility that I was right. That evening, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was a process server with papers for Caleb. I was countersuing for divorce on grounds of emotional abuse and abandonment. My lawyer had advised me that it was a standard strategy, but watching Caleb read through my accusations felt terrible. According to my petition, he was controlling, emotionally withholding, and had created a hostile home environment through his surveillance and documentation. "Emotional abuse," he said after reading through it. My lawyer said, "Your lawyer is trying to create reasonable doubt about your behavior by making me the villain. Aren't you? You've been planning to destroy me for months." "I've been planning to protect myself. There's a difference." "By humiliating me in public. By holding you accountable for your choices. Everything in those documents is true, Otily. Every screenshot, every timeline, every witness statement. I didn't make any of it up." He was right, and we both knew it. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyer meetings, document requests, and increasingly hostile negotiations. Word had gotten out at work that we were divorcing, and the gossip was brutal. People who'd been encouraging my behavior for months suddenly seemed to remember that I was married and acted shocked that there were consequences. Tom, who'd spent months bringing me coffee and listening to me vent about my marriage, suddenly went cold and professional. When I asked if he'd spoken to Caleb's lawyer, he admitted he'd answered questions about what I'd said, how unhappy I was, how I felt unappreciated, and that I wasn't sure I wanted to be married. Rafa vanished too and blocked me everywhere, and the isolation hit hard. 3 months after being served, we sat in a settlement conference and divided 4 years of marriage like a business. Because my behavior was documented, I got less than half of the assets and had to pay part of Caleb's legal fees. Worst of all, the agreement included a detailed written record of my conduct, permanent and humiliating. In the parking lot afterward, I accused Caleb of destroying me. He calmly said he hadn't destroyed me. He'd documented what I'd done. He called it accountability, not revenge, and reminded me court records were public. When I insisted I never physically cheated, he said I'd cheated on the marriage every day, just without taking my clothes off. That night, alone in a tiny studio, I scrolled through my old posts and finally saw what I'd refused to admit. I'd been acting single while expecting the benefits of being married. Months later, a coworker bluntly asked if I really didn't see the divorce coming, and I had to admit I did. I just thought I could fix everything whenever I felt ready. I realized even an apology call would be selfish, so I deleted Caleb's number. I'd gotten the attention and validation I chased. The price was my marriage, my home, my finances, and my reputation. Now I had to live with the reality I'd chosen and figure out how to move forward.